If you're thinking, I should go for a run today, but it looks like it could rain, Sierra says save on epic rain jackets. If you're also thinking, but I can't go out in these beat-up old running shoes, Sierra says save on top brand running shoes. And if you're still thinking, but I'm also busy performing brain surgery, well then we say, you really should have led with that. Sierra, let's get moving to your local store, like now. Go!
What up, Kool-Aid Nation? It's your boy Hughes. End of the day 2 of the NFL draft. Got Okri here with us.
What's going on, everybody?
All right, sir. So we made some moves in round 2, made our pick in round 3. Overall, what do you got for me after day 2?
Hughes, we talked about it before, and the minute I saw it trade up, I was disgusted. I don't know why we're trading up when we only have 6 draft picks. I try to be positive when it comes to my Lions, but trading up, giving up resources when we don't have any to give up is just the worst in my opinion. Now they go up and they get a running back, and like after we got Ragnow, I felt like we put so much into the offensive line that we almost should have just said, hey, if this, if LeGarrette Blount, Amir, Theo, and a host of others can't get it done behind the O-line, then they just can't. But I almost didn't want to put another resource. So, I think I had Kerryon Johnson as, my 4th or 5th running back on the board, right behind Darius Geis, Chubb, and Ronald Jones. I think Kerryon was above Ronald Jones for me and behind Chubb. So it's not that I hate the player, but, man, I just can't deal with the trade up and taking a running back in the upper 2nd round. Those two things kill me with the first pick and the second pick. I haven't done enough research on this guy. A lot of people are trying to look and read up on him. He just seems like a player that either fits this defense or that Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn like, but that's a total wait and see. He was 6th, 7th round type guy for the, draft experts per se, or the pundits, and maybe the NFL likes him better. I don't know, but not too happy with the second day. I think the 2nd and 3rd rounds are very important, and I felt like I just walked away saying Kerryon has to be his absolute best of the best, or else it's going to be a pretty big swing and miss in rounds 2 and 3. So that's my initial thoughts.
Yeah. I feel the same way with the running back situation with trading up. If you think about it, the Redskins traded back after we made that pick, and yet in the 3rd round they still got Darius Geis. So they kind of made. So we gave up a 4th round pick to move up 9 spots to grab Johnson, and the Redskins traded back, got more picks, and still got their guy in the 3rd round. So to me, it almost looked like they schooled us on how to handle that situation. And I don't know if the opening few picks of the 2nd round kind of forced their hand with Chubb and Ronald Jones coming off the board early. Because just listening to Quinn's press conference, he talked about talked about him last night. They were hoping he was going to slip back to their pick, but they weren't sure, so that's why they had to take action. So it seems like they were pinpointing on that guy from the beginning, or that position from the beginning, and with those other 2 guys coming off the board, they didn't have a choice but to come up and try to get him because they obviously didn't value Darius Geis at all.
Right. Well, I don't know if you got to the part where he talked about Geis. He just randomly hinted, like all these people are, that there's some random things in his background that they weren't sure about or they didn't feel good about. Those are the kind of things that bug me about the draft, like how this stuff never came out in the 2-3 months leading up, but then draft day, all these guys slipped through to medical or some type of character/personal item. I wish we had more information, but we'll see because, like I say, I like that guy in Washington, and like you said, a trade down is nice, but what if they find out he's got some crazy thing that nobody knew about, and then it's a wasted pick. So let me talk for a minute or two about the good of Kerryon Johnson. The guy's ultra young. He's a junior. He's 20 years old. He played in the SEC. yeah, he runs upright, but he put up crazy numbers, and he's a slashing. Quinn talked about, he can run the outside, but he just kind of hits it and goes type of guy. Heard a lot of good things leading up to the draft about him. As far as a player, I did hear from some that he's not like the craziest athlete in the world, but he sounds like he's just not only a good running back, but could be a workhorse back. Like, I think we'll bring him in slow and he'll just kind of find his niche, but maybe in a year or two, he is that 2-down thumper or a 3-down back to some degree. So again, that goes back to me saying it's not so much about the player, it's just about the position, and it's about, like you said, other people are moving all around the board and we're moving up when we should be moving the other direction. Is tough. So my best hopes would be that in the next few years we can look back and say, man, even though we didn't like it and we had to give up resources, like, we found a running back that can actually make plays in the NFL. That's my hope. And then I don't know if the safety is for the future if people leave, or if he's going to make plays this year in a certain role. I don't know, but that's the silver lining for both of them, is that they have a plan for the safety, and that carry on can help put our running back woes to bed as part of a committee, and then ultimately maybe the guy. But we'll have to wait and see, I guess, on that. So
in Bob Quinn we trust, right?
You have to, but man, he's starting to frustrate me without going back. I don't know why. Like, this is his third draft where I think he's only went back once or twice.
Yeah.
And he admits all the time. He's getting calls. He's doing all this stuff. It's like, hey, go the other direction, please. Like, get more picks, get more swings rather than moving up. Like, here's what I wanted to ask you. Like, what do you think about this philosophy where they just target players, and then it's almost like, oh, we got to do everything we can just to get that guy. If we don't get him, the world collapses? Because my take on that. It's like, we're already looking at the board heading into day 3, and there's all these people that, at least on paper, on what I've heard about them, could be great football players. But we're acting like there's one running back we have to have, or, oh, man, I got to have this safety who I could have got 3 rounds later, possibly. Where do you stand on this, like, go get him attitude because they love him, or should he have more of an approach of, yeah, we love these guys, and yeah, they fit our scheme, but let them fall to us at a better value?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you that it's better to, trade back or go back, or not like pinpoint a certain guy and try to go get him. I mean, we're still evaluating his first couple drafts to kind of see how everything falls, but I mean, we have 2 picks tomorrow. That's it. Two and we're done for the year, unless something happens and they make any more trades. But the 6th round pick we traded last year to get Greg Robinson's gone, so we had, in the 4th round pick we traded today, so we have a 5th and a 7th tomorrow, and that's it. And we've addressed one spot on the defense, and it wasn't necessarily even that big of a weakness on the team. There's still some holes in the front 4, front 7 type players we need. So yeah, I don't know, man. You would think that you would have a couple of guys that would fit like what you're looking for, and either sit pat where you are or move back to try to, get capital and get those guys. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of trading up to go get the guy you want, unless it's, like a franchise changing player.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, if this guy's a blue chip guy and you want to go up and get him every once in a while, like, and you have, like I said, if you got 10 draft picks, 12 draft picks, and you're like, man, we got to get up higher in the first round. This guy's a game changer. He's a prime time player, then I can see it. But we seem to be coming up in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th rounds for guys that, aren't even, especially at the time drafted. I mean, the safety bothers me the most, but you're telling me you can't just sit there and if someone takes Kerryon Johnson, you just take a defensive tackle or defensive end, and then the 3rd round you look at it again. I mean, I can't imagine they looked at all this plethora of running backs and said, oh, I don't like any of them except Kerryon. We got to do whatever it takes to go get him. But I don't know. I mean, it's just, to me, it's harder to do it than to say it, but like when you look at the board and there's all these players, and if you get offers, I think Bill Belichick and people just, yeah, they value people, but the minute someone asks them to trade, they just kind of look and say, wow, I love this player, but there's 5 other DTs that I could, deal with too, or I can like coach up. So they just trade it away, and then they wait and see what one of those 5 fall, and if they don't like them enough, they either trade again or they take another position, until the board matches up with the players. So yeah. I don't know. I like to do that. Like if I could flip picks right now, I'd love to have Landry and Mason Cole, or Landry and I'm trying to think what other like guard centers went kind of in the mid rounds that could have been options. Daniels, I don't know if he'd have been there. I'd have to look back at the picks, but could you have got Landry and Daniels? Like, all that talk about him being injured and then he goes high in the second round. That must just be a scheme fit, I guess. Mm-hmm. But that's frustrating.
Yeah, I think when you talk about like good GMs or good front offices, good teams, they have the ability to kind of look at big picture type of things and not just year to year situations, right? Like, a lot of these teams are already adding picks for next year. Like Green Bay got a first round pick for next year for that Davenport trade. New England got a second round pick for next year for another trade that they back out. So they know, they're building capital for not just this year, but years in the future. So, GMs have to have the ability to look down the line, not just at this draft, but all drafts in general moving forward to try to put your team in the best position to win. Lions aren't in a situation where if they don't win the Super Bowl next year, the front office staff gets ran out of town. They're in a position where they can build for a couple of years and do it the right way, and only having, 2 more draft picks doesn't necessarily help out a weak defensive roster to help build that up.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I know the people on the Kool-Aid cast don't want to hear about our love for fantasy football right now, but that's where we see it the most is in the one league we do, the Reality Sports Online, where we're almost the GM. Like the other teams in our league, it's easy to have them give away a 2019 or 2020 rookie draft pick because it's not right in front of them. But then when those years roll around and we're sitting there with all these high picks and these guys got nothing, that's the foresight you're talking about in like a real world in fantasy football for us. But in the NFL, it's exactly the same. Like, yeah, you gotta make the pick, or yeah, you might fall in love with the guy in the moment. But it's also great to make a trade and wait for a year or two and say, hey, remember when we gave up so and so, but now we got a second or a third rounder for him. Like, and we make that count. So I totally hear you there, and I think that it takes some discipline, but I would love to see that a bit more so than, not only these trade-ups, but there's been a handful of times now in Bob Quinn's regime where he's either reached up for somebody or he takes a position that just you shake your head at or ends up being a wasted draft pick. And, I can live with those in the 6th, 7th round, but not in the 3rd to 5th round. I can't just have you take guys, reach for guys, and then have them be non-factor in 2 years.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you have to, you have to be patient with the pick. You can't get excited when you see a shiny new toy and think that this is the end all be all without realizing that, hey, next year there's going to be just as many shiny new toys. So there's no point in, going fast and just grabbing it to grab it when it might not be exactly what's necessary. So, at the end of the day, it's a running back. We needed one. We talked about before the draft needing a safety. Like you said, we're not sure about the player just because not really anybody is. But I guess at the end of the day, we got to trust Mr. Bob.
Yeah, I'll trust him. And I guess, the thing that throws me for a loop is, so we brought in LeGarrette Blount, and we already had some running backs. And I'm glad about that. Like, I'm glad we have a bigger running back and we put some emphasis, but I think I would have felt better about Kerryon Johnson this high without any additions. Like, oh man, we got Kerryon, Amir, and Theo, right? That would have been like the new exciting young trio that we're going to try to move forward with. But we put 2 resources into that and 1 resource into the O-line. And, we sort of talked about a safety, but I think, remember, we also said that where does he fit or how would you use one with the other people we have? So,
Yeah.
I think that, now we're heading into day 3 with only 2 draft picks, and he said in his press conference, I feel good about the D-line, or we didn't have any D-line people ranked high. It's like, well, last time I looked, you don't have many impact players on that D-line, especially in comparison to other teams. You see what Jacksonville did? I mean, I hate to get on another big tangent, but let's pull up their defensive roster and probably pull up 5 to 8 Pro Bowl talent type people.
Yep.
And what do we got? We got the hype of Ziggy and Glover and Slay, that are, and some of those guys are good for our team, but they're not like primo guys, in the NFL or on other teams. So I just think when I hear him say, I feel good about this or that, I look around and go, look at these other teams that have not only prime time players, but depth at positions. I mean, it seems like he just thinks, we're fine, or we'll figure it out. I'm thinking, I don't know. I don't see it sometimes when he says that.
Yeah, and a team that kind of embodies that in this draft to me is Tampa Bay. If we're talking about other teams, like we talked about how good of a draft they had, when they made that pick in the first round, everybody's like, well, why would they pick Vita Vea when they have JPP, McCoy, Vinny Curry already? Well, probably because he was the best guy on their board.
Mm-hmm.
If he's the best guy on your board, then you just made a strong position even stronger. So it's, there's teams that do best available, there's teams that do best available in a position of need. So,
And part of that with Tampa is if we pulled up I think they probably traded, I would have to say 3-4 times already in this draft. So they moved all around the board. They took the best player. And then, as we've talked about multiple times, this draft is so nuts that they still get all these positions of need because they move down and around, because there's so much dang talent in these drafts that they still get their running back. They still get all these other defensive back positions they need because they're still out there, and I'd love to do a study one day and see all these big names that we know of, or the big school guys versus these random guys that people pick. There's lots of picks today, 6th, 7th round, undrafted, 5th round, getting picked in the high 2nd. I mean, I'd love to see how those pan out versus just going with the names that everybody's heard about, everybody talks about. I mean, I wonder what the numbers would be, because sometimes it feels like you just overthink it. Just go take the guy that has 2-3 year production at a big school and don't overthink it, But I think there was a couple of teams that had good drafts. I really still love the Ragnow pick, and I think that, like you just said, running back was a need. It was all about where we took it and what he does when he's here. If we're sitting here in 2-3 years looking at Kerryon Johnson going, he's okay, or he makes a few plays here or there, then it's not going to be good enough. But if we look back and say, man, this guy is a thoroughbred in the NFL, then that justifies the pick.
Yep.
So you always got to wait on it, but I don't feel like we got a superstar today or a guy that'll make a huge impact in 2018, and I felt like that's what we needed.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I agree.
Any thoughts on tomorrow? I know it's hard to pick between 4 through 7, but positions you're looking at, hopes, any hopeful player names or anything that...
I mean, at this point, I'm definitely still looking at defensive line as a position of need. Josh Sweat's still out there. I don't know. You had mentioned something about an injury with him, so I don't know what the situation is there. Mo Hurst is obviously still on the board, but a lot of people have taken him off. Deshaun Hand from Alabama is still available. So I'm definitely looking at defensive end, defensive tackle, and because we don't have a 4th round, so in the 5th round. So that's what my hope is, but it's hard to say who's going to be available when we're 50-some plus picks away from the next time we go.
Exactly. We need to keep an eye on who gets in that range in the 4th round that we gave up, because the 4th round's not a giveaway pick by any means. Mm-mm. And then the 5th round, to make up for giving up that 4th, I think in the 5th round you got to be really aggressive and roll the dice. If somebody like Sweat is there, or one of these other guys that's only drops because of some random issue. I know it's not Bob Quinn or their philosophy to roll the dice too much, but I feel like now's the time to do it, because what if you did hit a home run then? You get a guy, he had a character, he had this, that. He comes into your program and he just fulfills his potential or ends up being a real prospect at the NFL level. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I'm hoping for in day 3 here, is just, can we get a guy that either slipped really late, or can we make a pick that just, when we're playing football this year on Sundays, we're like, wow, look at that guy we got in the 5th round that's blowing it up.
Yeah.
Because that'd help save the draft for me.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, obviously they value what they have on the defensive line more so than most people do, because obviously, he talked yesterday about building the team inside out, but then today goes running back safety when there was still a handful of decent defensive line players available. So I don't know if they see something that nobody else does, or, they value the guys they have there higher, but, I would think you have to add somebody to that mix, because, we've talked before about defensive line now is more of a rotational position than it has been in a while, so you need bodies, and, they don't have a lot of quality bodies based on the depth chart on defensive line or at defensive end.
Yep, I think it's quality. That was a good word used. The quality. They've got players there. It's just what's their quality and what's their production. Even, I would have liked to see in this draft a D-end or 2 get taken so that Zettel could have been a rotational 3rd, 4th D-end rather than number 2, which he's basically number 2 or 3 right now. And the guy in front of him, Kerry Hyder's not, the end-all, be-all at the end by any means, right?
Yeah.
And we still don't even know what we have in Ziggy either, so.
Yeah, and Kerry Hyder's coming off a season-ending injury that he had last year. And, besides Ashawn and Sly Williams, the only decent backup you got is Akeem Spence and probably Cornelius Washington. So you would like to add somebody else to that mix, too. And you don't really only have 3 guys on the end that are rotating, and that's Ziggy, Zettel, and Kerry Hyder. So, well,
Cornelius is supposed to be a DN, but he's going to be a huge bust if he doesn't do anything this year, because they gave him decent money. He's a young player, supposed to be kind of explosive off the edge. I don't even remember him playing last year.
Yeah.
Did Cornelius Washington even play? I don't remember one play that he made in a game, or even remembering him out there at all. So.
Yeah, I think they have him down for 2.5 sacks last year. So,
okay, so he made a couple plays, but like you say, if he's a nobody, that's just another swing and miss in free agency with these, Bob Quinn acquisitions. So I don't know, Hughes. It hasn't been a very fun podcast. Not a bunch of laughing. It feels like we're bagging on Bob Quinn. Obviously, we love him and Matt Patricia, but I'm just walking away from day 2, which again I told you before it started. Day 2 is my favorite day of the draft because there's so many guys that are still there that are highly productive in college. There's guys you can continue to wait on and get later than you think, and they make a huge impact. I mean, I think if I was a GM, I would always be trying to trade into the 2nd and 3rd rounds, better contracts, same quality of players sometimes as you're getting in the 1st, not as much risk. So, I think it all hangs on Carrion and what he does, and if we get some plays and explosiveness out of safety, Tracy Walker, then great, but I'm going to leave this as a huge TBD and much more of a thumbs down today than anything else, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the overall feeling of today is we did get a running back, but we lost one of our picks for tomorrow, and that kind of hurts. It's disappointing going into Saturday only having 2 picks for 3 rounds, 4 rounds actually, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Yeah, so we have 2 picks in 4 rounds tomorrow, which is definitely disappointing to me. So I don't know. Hopefully they can make the best out of these 2 picks, and like you said, it's not necessarily the player. It's just how we got the player and where we got the player that kind of makes it not as exciting as it should be.
Yep, well, sounds good, man. And like Bob Quinn said, it doesn't end after the draft either. We got to remember that. They may have some other tricks up their sleeve, and they may bring in people. So we'll try to continue to both be positive and see what they do. But, let's recap in day 2 of the draft, and we'll keep our eyes on what they do in day 3. So sounds good. Detroit Kool-Aid Nation, hang in there with us and catch us back. Probably do a draft recap show either at the end of the draft or as we get into early next week. So thanks again for listening, and talk to you guys later.